the CCRL chess.com website is, in my opinion, one of the best websites that you can find about chess. The CCRL stands for Computer Chess Rating List, and on this beautiful website you have so many great options that I think you can use really all for free. And first of all, what you can do, you can download all of the PGNs that have been played by the latest version of Stockfish, by the Stockfish 15 engine, which is really incredible. You have really the latest ideas, the latest tactical shots of particular openings, of particular sidelines of openings. But what you can also do, and this is in my opinion even much more important, you can download all of the PGNs that have been played in some openings, but also in some sidelines of openings. For instance, maybe you're bothered by the Ruy Lopez, I don't know, maybe you're bothered by the Marshall attack or something, then you download all of the PGNs of the games that have been played in the Marshall attack of the Ruy Lopez played by Top Engine, and you can have really a great preparation. And you're maybe bothered maybe by the anti-Marshall system of White or something, so that's why you can also download the anti-Marshall system. So you have so many great options. Please use it, especially because of the fact that you can also download the Stockfish 15 engine for free. So combined with the CCRL chess.com website, I think you can have really a great preparation, as I said, in some openings, in some defense, and in particular variations of this line. So I found a really cool tactical line, and I found really a beautiful opening trap for black here in the Catalan opening, and I really searched for more cool games in the Catalan opening because I was always bothered by this aggressive but also annoying setup of White. White is playing always this game in aggressive way, so I really searched for opportunities how to beat, how to dismantle really the Catalan opening in the beginning, and I found really this tactical idea that you see now by the Stockfish 15 with the black pieces against another top engine, Koivisto. Be prepared. Here you witness really a beautiful sharp tactical trap here by Stockfish 15 against this other top engine. So let's see now the game. It was really incredible game from the beginning. It will be really an epic and immortal tactical battle. So here d4 was played by Koivisto. Stockfish 15's response was knight to f6, c4, e6, maybe going into the nim, so after move knight to c3, probably bishop to b4 would be the continuation. Now Koivisto goes immediately into the Catalan opening with the move g3. It's not playing with the knight, because when you are playing with the knight move instead of this move knight to f3, then it leads probably into some normal ideas of the queen's game decline. Now with the move g3, Koivisto is already announcing a sharp tactical battle. So here d5 played by Stockfish, and after move bishop to g2, basically black has to already make a decision. If we are going into the open Catalan with d takes c4, this would be then the open defense, or with bishop to b4 or bishop to e7, we are going into the closed Catalan. You can also play the move c6, but in my opinion, this move c6 in the beginning should be delayed. This move c6 you should play afterwards. I explain you when you should play the move c6. c6 in my opinion is not so good immediately. You should play first bishop to b4, and when the bishop comes on d2, then you retreat and then you play the move c6. So we'll come to that part, because now after move bishop to b4 that we're playing now, this aggressive method against the king, your opponent has now basically two choices. He can play now knight to d2 or bishop to d2. Bishop to d2 is in my opinion much better, because you're challenging the bishop immediately. If you play now knight to d2, then the problem is now, okay, you are covering your king, but basically what you want to get your knight on c3, where the knight is controlling further the e4 square with the support of the bishop. Many times for white, and the main strategic goal is to push the pawn on e4. So that's why when the knight is on d2, when it's pinned like this, I don't see a good chance for white to make this e4 goal happen. So that's why after move bishop to b4, the main line of the closed Catalan is now the move bishop to d2. Now black retreats to e7. This is not a mistake, because now this bishop on d2 that white played is also a little bit misplaced. White will lose another tempo in order to improve the bishop's activity. So far it's really the main line of these types of positions. Now after move knight to f3, we have kingside castling, and after kingside castling now comes the move c6, because it's now a different story. Imagine now this position without this bishop to b4 move, if we would have lost maybe a tempo with kingside castling, bishop to e7. Now, as we said, white needs now to play another tempo with the bishop in order to get it somewhere active. So in the continuation, bishop to f4 played by Koivisto, normal idea. So this position has been played really millions and millions of times. In the continuation, we have now b6, and this is not a common method for black in order to include the light square bishop into the game, because many times in the Catalan for black, when you are building these types of structures, c6, d5, e6, you have problems to get the light square bishop somewhere into the game. So usually you can do it by bishop to b7 or bishop to a6. These are two normal ideas. So in the continuation, we have now knight takes c3, and you see now white also delays the situation in the center of the board, because after c takes d5, probably c takes d5 is also going to happen. And now look at this with bishop to a6, bishop to a6, and an attack against the pawn on e2. This could be also dangerous. Finally, I think black would develop here the minor piece in a good way, because now we can use now this diagonal, and both of these bishops I think are pretty fine. Knight to c6 going to happen, rook to c8, competing on the only file that's open, of course, on the c file. So this is, I think, solid game for black. I'm not saying black is winning because white took the pawn here in the center of the board, but this is something that I think many times white is trying to avoid. That's why after move knight to c3, Koivisto is playing. Here Koivisto is again preparing this move e4, 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 e4. That's now, I think, the main strategic goal. Also knight to e5, maybe liberating now the long diagonal, or also for the light square bishop. But I think e4 is now the realistic chance here for white. So in the continuation, we have now bishop to b7, and you see now Stockfish is playing a different defense. You can of course play also bishop to a6, you can play d takes c4. This would be also normal idea. But now with bishop to b7, Stockfish is having a further control of the e4. Maybe it's not so clear that this is happening now immediately, but now when we have a great control of the e4 square, in the next couple of moves we can expect also the move c5 by black. So a really challenge white's now centered, so it's becoming really now a wild tactical battle. So in the continuation, queen to b3, and you see now the downside about this move knight to c3 is that after queen to c2, you don't have a connection between this between the queen and the pawn. And I think now black will finally take with d takes c4, even if you play something like knight to e5, liberating now this long diagonal. Then with knight to d5, black can solve many positional problems. Will eventually play b5 if you retreat, for instance, with the bishop on f4. Here b5, b4, a5, a4. The pawns will start the roll here on the queen side. So in my opinion, from this point on, black should be much better. So that's why queen to b3 was played by Koivisto, because the serious threat was really now finally the move d takes c4. And this move is in some occasions good, because notice that the queen is lined up with the bishop on the b file. So if the b file somehow clears, then of course the bishop could be endangered on this file. So in the continuation, knight to h5, hitting the bishop, bishop to e3. This is a good move for white. White retreats with the bishop, stays with his active bishop on the board, but now it stands in the way of the pawn that we wanted to push in the first place. We want to play e4, as we said. That's now our main strategic goal. In the continuation, knight to d7, rook to d1, indirectly of course hitting the queen again on the d file, because again, if something clears on the d file, then of course also the queen could be endangered. Rook to c8, rook to c1, knight to f6, retreating, knight to e1, preparing maybe some methods, f3, bishop to f2, e4. This could be a solid also idea now for white to make some kind of a progress in the center of the board. Now comes this idea, bishop to a6, and from this point on, this becomes now really one of the wildest battles that I've seen in my life. Really a wild tactical battle now between these two top engines. So after move bishop to a6, Stockfish hits the pawn on c4, and again is provoking this kind of a continuation. C takes d5. Now with knight to d5 or c takes d5, this should be again a solid game for black, because also the bishop is targeting now the weak pawn on e2. So it's in many occasions also a structural weakness in the position of white. So that's why after move queen to a4 that Koivisto is playing. Koivisto is hoping now to trap the bishop, but Stockfish plays now bishop to c4 anyway, and it seems so really that the bishop is trapped. And now comes the cool really tactical line that Stockfish will introduce to us. This is now really a beautiful theoretical novelty. This position has never been reached in chess history. This is now really stunning what Stockfish is doing, because after bishop b3, you see now the bishop doesn't have good squares. Every square for the bishop is covered, but now comes this beautiful counterattack, b5, hitting the queen. The queen doesn't have good squares. Queen to a6 has to be played. In the continuation, knight to b1, hitting the queen, and now after queen to a7, rook to c7, again hitting the queen. Look at this really wild tactical line by Stockfish. And after after queen to e8, queen to d7, and there is now a huge threat. Rook to a7, or maybe somehow get the knight out of the range and also maybe trap the queen on the 8th rank. But the huge threat is of course now the move rook to a7. So that's why in the continuation bishop to f4 was played by Koivisto. Stockfish goes rook to a7 anyway, and now after queen to b8, the rook takes b8 and bishop to e8. Here Stockfish has some problems because still the rook is hanging, and white has so far not enough compensation for the lost queen, because so far of course here black also lost decisive material. Black lost a minor piece but also lost a rook here in the continuation. Of course you see Koivisto has 2 minor pieces and the rook here for the queen, although as this bishop is hanging, but Stockfish has now the opportunity to retreat, to again attack the bishop on b8. This was of course the continuation, bishop to e5, and now b4, and now really the tactical sequence is over, because look at this, the knight is hanging but also the bishop is hanging, and Stockfish now is having a good square for the bishop. Bishop to b5 or bishop to a6 will happen, so Stockfish got out of this tactical mess. So here black is taking over. Black has, I think, here a much better position. So in the continuation, b takes c4, we have b takes c3 now by Stockfish, bishop to f6, bishop to f6, rook takes c3, but now also Stockfish grabs now the pawn on a2. And when we count now the material, here the Koivisto engine has a rook and the knight for the queen and a solid structure in the center of the board, so it's not so clear. Of course many of us, I think, wouldn't even win this position with the black pieces against white, but Stockfish is now taking over. Look at this beautiful technique, and like also here Stockfish will show us how to for instance win this kind of an endgame. So in the continuation, e3 by Koivisto, g5, liberating now the escape route for the king, because many times white would of course try this kind of an idea, doubling up rooks on the b file, maybe get somehow the pieces on the 8th rank, include also the knight into the game. So g5 a good move, very nice escape route for the king. So bishop to f3, king to g7, knight to d3, controlling the c5 and e5. So this is now of course Koivisto's main choice. Bishop to e7, we have c5. If you play knight to e5, queen to b7 will happen, so probably this rook and queen are building a battery then afterwards on the 2nd rank, so this could be dangerous. So far nothing spectacular, although you gain the tempo, but as I said, really nothing that should bother black in the continuation. So after move c5 was played by Koivisto, we have bishop to d8, rook to b3, bishop to c7, controlling now finally the e5 square, rook to b7, again with the same idea, getting the knight on e5. In the continuation, queen to c8, attacking the rook, and now rook to b1, getting this rook connected to this other rook. So Koivisto builds also a beautiful rook battery on the b file. So king to g6, we have a rook to b6. A dirty idea here by Koivisto, because of course if you play bishop to b6, look at the c takes b6, and now the pawn is rolling, so probably this would be then game over here for black. So that's why of course Stockfish is not falling for this, plays now queen to a8, very important to get the queen connected to this pawn on c6. In the continuation, rook to b7, rook to a7, rook takes a7, and now after rook to a7, with this moves, I think Stockfish solved all of the tactical problems now in the game, because when black is not having any more the rook battery, I think the attack is splashed. Okay, maybe you can force a draw somehow out of this position, maybe you can struggle for a draw, but I think when it comes to winning the game, white has now lost any chance in this game, especially as I said, because now the attack is simply splashed. Only black can, I think, attack now this position. In the continuation, now g4, f5, Stockfish continues the pressure, king to g2, king to f6, improving the position of the king, h3, now beautiful move f4, again opening the position in front of the king, e takes f4, g takes f4, we have now the move h4, and now a beautiful move also by Stockfish h6, because e5 in my opinion is not working here. Many of us, I think, would play this move, would try even to be more aggressive in the position, but this is not working. D takes e5, bishop to e5, and now with g5 you could face many tactical problems. The rook is coming into the game, so this is really probably not a good continuation here for white. So after move h4, Stockfish keeps it calm, plays h6, prevents now this annoying move g5. In the continuation, bishop to e2, king to e7, knight to b4, queen to a4, again protecting now the pawn on c6, bishop to d1, queen to a8. Very, very important what Stockfish is doing. Stockfish is not losing this pawn. If this pawn would be lost, then of course the passer here on the c file could cause now really many positional problems in black's position. So bishop to e2, king to d7, connecting now finally the king to these pawns, because Stockfish wants to play freely with the queen. So far it wasn't possible because there were this kind of attacks, but now when the king is here, Stockfish can now play with the queen, can also maybe include the bishop into the game. So from this point on, I think the game becomes simply a one-way ticket. So knight to a6, we have now a beautiful move f3, deflecting here the bishop from the defense of the knight. Of course, Koivisto is not falling for this, but now the king gets decoyed to this square, and after queen to f8, we have a check, and now Stockfish builds a beautiful queen and bishop battery. It includes now both of these pieces in this attack. In the continuation, we have now bishop to f3, because of course this rook to b7 is not working, because you get checkmated, you have only one square, and now queen to h1 is here game over for white. So you don't have time to play this maybe annoying pin on the 7th rank. So that's why bishop to f3, controlling further the h1, because of course queen to h2 and king to f1 is not a checkmate anymore. Good defensive move here by Koivisto. Queen to h2 anyway, king to f1, and now very important, king to c8, getting out of this potential 7th rank pin by black. Here knight to c7, king to c7, and okay, this is now a more and more simplified game, but this trades of minor pieces I think is good for black, because with 3 minor pieces maybe there were some kind of complications here for black, but now again it seems to me that with every trade of pieces, white's position got worse and worse. Again, it seems to me that the attack is simply splash. Stockfish continues now after move h5 with the move queen to f4, hitting now this pawn, hitting the bishop, so this is not protectable anymore. Here in the continuation, king to g2, queen takes d4. Now look at this pawn is falling, and this should be, I think, a completely winning game here for black. But there are still some resources here for Koivisto. Again, we should maybe watch even this position a little bit more from a human's perspective, although these are top engines that are playing, but I still think that many players with the black pieces would mess this up, because now Koivisto plays a beautiful g5, and look what Koivisto is doing. He's creating now a supported passer on the h file. And when I watched the game for the first time at home, when I analyzed it, I thought, okay, how are I going to defend this? How are I going to include the queen into defense? Because look at this, the bishop is protecting the king, so you don't have any checks. So the problem is, of course, now how are you going to stop this pawn? This pawn is just rolling. But of course there is this resource, g4. The bishop has to step back with the move bishop to d1. We have now the check. We have king to h2, and you see now the king is standing in the front of the rook. So now the rook is not supporting anymore the pawn, which is now very important for the continuation, because after queen to d4, king to g2, again a couple of checks, queen to f4, king to g2, and now g3. This was the stunner. This was a beautiful endgame move. As I said, many of us would not find this move, because that's, I think, the only winning move here for white. Really for black, pardon me. Really wild stuff. You are sacrificing now the pawn just in order to get the king naked, sort of get somehow a new attacking possibilities against the king, because after f takes g3, of course white needs now to react. We have a check, and again the king is getting in front of the rook, because now the rook is not supporting anymore the pawn. That's now the important thing about this attack. So now from king to d7, Stockfish is getting closer and closer to the king. Stockfish has now to play some kind of a blockade, get maybe somehow the king to h6 and start to push this pawn. This is now the main strategic goal of this endgame. Here in the continuation, rook to f1, because if you try something like, let's see, this line, it seems so that this could be working, king to g4, maybe getting out of this h file again, and again start to push the pawn. This is not working, because after king to e7 you could maybe try to push the pawn further, but now after king to f7 and h7 we have this resource, queen to d4. First a check, you're maybe getting your king on f3, but if you play that, then of course queen to e4, the rook is hanging, you will pick up the rook and you always catch up now with the pawn here on the h file. So instead of this move rook to f3, you could play of course rook to h3 again, but again this is not working because of this sequence. Look at this, queen to e4, you are maybe promoting the queen, but now with rook to h1 again you have to step back and we will pick up now the queen on the h file. So really beautiful endgame technique here. So that's why Koivisto played rook to f1 instead of king to g4. In the continuation, king to e7, bishop to g4. Now Stockfish lets this pawn roll also here on the d file. Rook to f4, e5, getting this pawn advanced. Queen to d3, we have rook to f2. We have queen to e3, rook to e2, an attack. But now after queen to g5, everything is connected. So now we are trying again just to let the pawn rolls here. That is the beautiful two connected passers on the e and d file. So in the continuation, rook to b2, queen to c1, we have now a check, king to f6, and now after bishop to f3, queen to f1, first the check. Here in the continuation, king to g4, and now d3. In this position, actually Koivisto resigns. So let's see what is the possible continuation. You can maybe try rook to c7, trying somehow to get the rook into the game, but actually we just push the pawn here further. You play bishop to e4, look at this. With d2, you play maybe this kind of an idea, but look at this. We pick up simply the bishop on e4. You can maybe pick up now the pawn, but now you're getting checkmated here, and after king to f3, there's simply no good defense against this check. So this should be game over here for white. So incredible game, I think, as in this Catalan opening. Let's go back to this really strange trap sort of. After queen to b3, we have seen this idea. So bishop to a6, queen to a4 was played. It seems so that the bishop is trapped, but now you're running into a wild tactical sequence. Look at this. This was a stunning tactic. Black lost decisive material. Although I'm pointing out, probably if this game would have been continued by maybe two even grandmasters, I'm not sure what would have been the outcome, because black lost also many pieces. White had a healthy pawn structure, but of course this is the Stockfish engine. Stockfish destroyed and white for sure. So great game, I think. We'll add it into your Catalan opening playlist. Be prepared. In the next couple of weeks, we will start the Catalan opening as our study, like the Queen's Game Decline. If you have followed maybe my Queen's Game Decline studies, now we'll start a similar playlist in the Catalan opening. I've set up this poll. If you have followed also my community tab, I've asked you which opening would you really like to study on my YouTube chess channel, and you have made a decision with almost 50% of your votes. You voted for the Catalan defense. So in the continuation of my YouTube chess channel, we will see this aggressive opening for white and for black. So be prepared. This will be, I think, really an epic playlist. So okay, see you soon with some more videos, and what you say, chess is the best, of course.